The video game company Ubisoft is known for their long-running Assassin's Creed franchise, which bases the structure of each game around historical events that drive the plot, world building, side quests, and overall appeal of their games. The success of previous AC games revolved around ancient Egypt in AC Origins and the Peloponnesian War between Sparta and Athens in AC Odyssey. In 2020, Ubisoft released AC Valhalla. Set during Viking expansion into the British Isles, the game allows players to explore the world through the eyes of Norwegian Viking Eivor. In terms of accessible media, AC Valhalla is one of the most recent sources of Viking imagery to a modern audience. The themes of raids and violence, body and gender, and the Vinland story arc participate and don't participate in a longer historiography. The image of violent Vikings persists, raids are an essential practice, race and gender are diverse and flexible, and the Vinland story is progressive and reflects upon previous depictions in the image of the Viking historiography. For those who don't know, a historiography is the study of the writing of history, the examination of when, why, and how historical events are addressed in contemporary writing.
There you are.
Violent raiding is one of the most infamous images of a Viking. AC Valhalla continues to participate in this larger historiography by showing Vikings as violent raiding marauders capable of ferocious bouts of strength and terror. We see raiding as not only present, but a built-in game mechanic that requires raiding as a progressive element, which is used to establish the player's home base, the settlement. Supplies looted from raids allow players to upgrade their settlement, armor and weaponry, and alter their longship. To encourage players to be successful in the raids, Vikings made by other AC Valhalla players can be hired to join Eivor's longship crew and fight alongside Eivor in raids. The raids are violent. Many of the raids are upon monasteries that are guarded by armed Anglo-Saxon soldiers. It is up to Eivor and their crew to battle through these soldiers and uncover supplies in the churches. The game does not allow for civilian casualties, and focuses Eivor's attacks on only the enemies capable of fighting back. The violent raiding met with opposition is similar to the understanding of Viking interactions in Henry Treece's Viking's Dawn from 1955. Treece writes that Vikings are, quote, no doubt fierce and reckless, yet it must be remembered that they had to face equally fierce and reckless enemies. This is consistent within the boundaries of the game mechanics with this point. This violent aspect of Viking raiding has always been a part of the image of Vikings. In Henry Longfellow's Skeleton and Armor from 1876, the Viking protagonists are described as wild and their exploits fervent with bloodshed and mayhem. Eivor is capable of holding their own in fights, enacting gruesome, finishing kill, unskippable animations. The Vikings violently decapitate and maim in general fight sequences as well. An extreme show of Viking violence appears in the Blood Eagle ritual performed by Eivor the Boneless, demonstrating an image of Viking violence tied to religious traditions. Roberta Frank writes in 1984 that the blood eagling procedure, of debatable historical accuracy, progressively becomes more lurid, pagan, and time-consuming with each passing century. Later texts such as the Orkneyinga saga, examined by Finnbogi Gudmundsson in 1941, describes the extensive tearing out of ribs and lungs ritual being purposeful as an offering to Odin. History Channel's Vikings, aired in 2006, portrays the ritual the very same as the saga, in terms of gore and vaguely pagan religious importance. Based on this intensifying historiography of the Blood Eagle, AC Valhalla's depiction is consistent with the intent focus on the Blood Eagle ritual being purposely violent and resembling pagan values.
A blood eagle, a raw, magnificent bird I'll tear from your guts.
Another aspect of violence that appears in the long historiography of Vikings is that of sexual violence. Writing in 2014, Erika Ruth Sigurdsson identifies repetitive naturalized depictions of rape that are embedded within the social structures of the Vikings. Sigurdsson sees this consistent in the Viking series, which displays sexual violence and rape as an unavoidable aspect of Viking life. In the game, Eivor has the option to have sexual relationships with some of the NPCs, both male and female, that they encounter in the world. But none come without consent by both parties involved, the player being the final decision maker in the process. Lines of affection and consent are worded carefully, with no malicious intent on the part of Eivor. AC Valhalla does not portray this typical quality of sexualized, violent rape in Viking life, making an effort to distinguish choice and consent in all sexual relationships Eivor has. This is a new depiction of Viking sexuality in the historiography. AC Valhalla deviates from the traditional visual depictions of Vikings to offer more diverse characters and appearance options. Appearance is one of the strongest aspects of a Viking. Burly, blonde, horned warriors with axes and furs make up the majority of popular images of Vikings in popular media. As for clothing, before it even crosses your mind, no, thankfully there are no classic horned helmet depictions on any of the AC Vikings. Instead, most sport helmets akin to their Anglo-Saxon counterparts. The rest of the attire is made up of heavy leather, cloaks with furs and cloak pins. The weaponry available includes shields, swords, spears, daggers, axes, hammers, flails, and bow and arrows. This attire and weaponry participates linearly with the traditional historiography. Just look at the popular film The Vikings from 1958, which has Vikings clothed in leathers and furs, wielding similar axes and swords. In considering the Viking body in AC Valhalla, skin color is varied throughout many of Eivor's clan, which is an innovation of the game in the general historiography. While Eivor begins the game fair and blonde, players have the option to change their appearance and hair color and tattoo arrangements on their arms, torso, back, and face. This is different from depictions of Vikings having blonde, yellowy hair, blue eyes, and fair white skin in Longfellow's Skeleton and Armor from 1876, alongside much of modern media today that sports primarily white Viking imagery. Many of the Vikings in Eivor's clan, including themselves, that declare their homeland to be that of Norway, are consistently white, but feature more red and brown hair variations. Vikings are not just Caucasian in skin color. There are Vikings in the settlement with darker skin and other regional distinctions, though Eivor themselves cannot alter their skin color as a customizable feature. Gender identity does not lead to specific social differentiation in AC Valhalla, which has evolved from how Vikings have traditionally been portrayed in the historiography. There are no dividing qualities between male and female Viking inhabitants in the social structure. Eivor, as part of the game mechanic, can be chosen as female with she, her, hers pronouns, or male with he, him, his pronouns. Aside from her physical features and pronouns, all interactions and experiences that she has in the game are the same as those as the male Eivor. Likewise, the depictions of many other female Vikings in positions of power and status alongside male Vikings testifies to how the game equalizes men and women. Female Eivor is not the only female Viking to have similar heightened status. Randvi, wife of the Jarl Sigurd, presides over the alliance map used to stake out areas of Mercia for alliance agreements. While Eivor and Sigurd are inaccessible to requests of the settlement population, Randvi stays in the Longhouse and answers disputes in the settlement. The Viking in charge of organizing Eivor's raiding crew is Edis, an elder woman. The crew that joins Eivor in battle and other fights have male and female Vikings making up the ranks, and the women are garbed in the same attire as the men. In the historiography, female warrior Vikings known as shield maidens and Valkyries, Valkyries being the equivalent of supernatural shield maidens, appeared in Norse sagas in the early 13th century and inspired a lot of historical and fantastical fictions. In History Channel's Vikings, Ragnar Lodbrok's wife, Lagertha, is depicted as the strongest shield maiden of her time. In AC Valhalla, females have more of a presence in warrior and leadership roles, but there are no females playing the role of the Jarl in any of the Viking societies in AC Valhalla, as Eivor only stands in temporarily for the Jarl Sigurd during his capture. Therefore, AC Valhalla may still be envisioning a patriarchy with more flexible social structures for women in leadership and battle, according to the image of a Viking historiography preceding it.
What can you tell me of Vinland? Is it a real place or merely a rumor?
Rumor or not, I found someone willing to sail you there. She claims to have seen it once before.
The main questline eventually prompts Eivor to journey to Vinland. Not sure what the rumored mysterious land across the open sea brings, Eivor sets sail on a 3-week journey to the new lands in an elaborate detour to take care of an old family feud.
All this way to kill a man, Gorm Kjotveson, the son of my father's old foe.
Eivor's visit to Vinland paints a new picture in the historiography of Viking interactions with native peoples of early America. This one recognizes previously harmful and racist depictions and attempts to be better and different from this previous image in the historiography. The native people Eivor interacts with speak Kanian Keha, a language of the Mohawk, which Eivor does not speak nor understand. Despite this barrier, Eivor is able to trade with the native people and share their storytelling culture. During Eivor's personal vendetta, their interactions with the Mohawk is peaceful and respectful, using their wares to be weaponized against enemy Vikings. The bad Vikings Eivor encounters in Vinland refer to native people as Skrælings, which is a derogatory term once used by early Norse settlers. Published in 1902 and 1904, The Thrall of Leif the Lucky and The Vinland Champions portray the native people Vikings encounter as unwilling Skrælings that have violent responses to Viking attempts to have honest dealings with them. These sources try to visualize Vikings making an effort to be kind to the native people, only to be met with aggressive resistance. This understanding of violent native people oppressing potential Viking settlers has carried into the modern day, particularly in the Danish film Valhalla Rising from 2009. The ending of the film features the protagonist Viking being swarmed and killed by Native Americans as the Vikings try to flee Vinland. These sources in the historiography paint a picture of an aggressive, unmoving native population putting off the migration of Vikings to Vinland. AC Valhalla, on the other hand, shows instead that Vikings are not interested in permanent settlement in Vinland and interact with peaceful native peoples despite the language barrier. As part of the quest dialogue, Eivor asks if more Vikings will be settling upon land in Vinland.
That is not our plan. Too many wild folk in the woods.
Despite plentiful resources in Vinland, too many wild folk does not clarify if unwelcoming native people turned the Vikings away or if there was a mutual understanding of native people's claim to the land. Eivor says as they are leaving Vinland,
Fate may bind my bones to this land. For now, I walk the sea.
It could be theoretical that Eivor says this to reference later voyages on the part of Vikings to Vinland, as the presence of Vikings in Vinland, aside from Eivor, is small in number at the time. Based on these descriptions, it is clear that AC Valhalla takes new strides in the image of Vikings in the modern historiography, as well as remaining consistent with some popular and traditional depictions. Raids and violence, as a quintessential image of the Viking, is continued. Violence is necessary in practice, and raids are crucial to the survival of Viking life in the game. The stereotypical horned helmets are dropped, but recognizable features in attire and weaponry are kept. AC Valhalla works to separate itself from a whitewashed view of Vikings by including different skin color variations within the Viking population. Eivor can have sexual relationships with NPCs, and there is no strong presence of sexual violence that previously makes up the image of the Viking historiography. Female Vikings have important leadership roles in society and have equal standings with male Vikings. Compared to the historiography, strong, warrior female Vikings is one that has existed under various names and continues to explore new depictions in AC Valhalla. The Vinland story displays peaceful recognition of native populations that hints that the Vikings had no plans to settle in Vinland. This contradicts the aggressive depictions of Skrælings and the blame put on the Native Americans for preventing the settlement of Vikings. The Viking in modern day is influenced by us. The image changes and reflects our own values regarding representation and ramifications of previous depictions. We hold tightly to the idea of a strong, ferocious, raiding Viking that makes up classic Viking images. Yet we also want more diversity and flexibility in the depictions of gender and race. We seek to recognize the faults of an image of Vikings that undermines early indigenous peoples and portray a platform of respect. The future image of the Viking will continue to evolve with society's values, so please keep in mind what you want that image to be. Thank you for watching this video essay. All of these observations in relation to the image of the Viking historiography were made for educational purposes only. Please look at the description below to find the bibliography of academic sources and links to visual research.